Speaking of fanning together, Sam Howell's doing pretty good in Washington. He's doing pretty good.
Yeah.
He is.
He looked awesome in that comeback against the Broncos.
Was it awesome? Was it truly awesome?
Well, he looked awesome.
Yeah. He looks the part, right?
Yeah.
And acts the part of an NFL quarterback. He has both of those down pat. He's in the NFC East, which everyone's 2-0, which is, well, no,
not the Giants. 7-1 as a division.
Yeah, the Giants took the goose egg to Dallas, but still a division that is normally flip-flopped the other way. All the successful teams with the Dallas and Washington and Philadelphia for obvious reasons because they're just a good team right now. And New York, the Giants, who happen to be playing tomorrow night here on the Fan against San Francisco in Thursday Night Football. Sam Howell finds himself in a unique position. For as much static as Ron Rivera took by not naming him the starting quarterback like right away, right out of training camp, he has stepped in under a new offensive coordinator with Eric Bieniemy and efficiently turned the Washington Commanders, which I'm still struggling to come to grips with saying Commanders, into a legitimate football team. He's got weapons around him. There's a decent running game as well, and we know that the Commanders, when pressed to play defense, will play defense. And so Sam Howell, as a young quarterback, finds himself in the right situation at the right time. But for a guy like Bryce Young, and I want to temper this by saying we just spent the last 10, 12 minutes hammering the Panthers about their first two games going, they're not a playoff team, although diehard Panthers fans would certainly disagree, saying, no, we're going to the playoffs still. There's still a chance. We have 15 more games.
They're two games back of every team in their division.
It's a long
That's
season,
true.
but we don't normally dig out those statistics right until like 3 or 4 games. The teams that lose like the most, those games up front have like a 9% chance of making the postseason or whatever it is.
I think since they expanded to 7 playoff teams, only one team has started 0-2 and made it to the playoffs.
So what you're saying is
there's a chance.
There's still a chance.
That was the Bengals. I don't see Jamar Chase and T. Higgins walking through that door.
No, they are not. But Bryce Young, who, Dan Orlovsky again, who talked to us just moments ago on the Pat McAfee Show, says he can play well in the NFL.
Yeah, he's got all the skills and the traits physically and mentally, needed to go play really well in the NFL. I absolutely still believe that. I think what's going on in Carolina is it's a little bit unexpected when it comes, certainly with the offensive line. I thought the offensive line would play a little bit better than they have the first 2 weeks. So
what's the big difference here now for Bryce Young as opposed to Sam Howell, who is the right quarterback in the right situation, what seems to be the right time, 2 games in. Let's all take that big, deep breath here. And then Bryce Young, who was the number 1 pick, which comes with a different expectation. We can all agree on that. And with apparently a quarterback-minded head coach. And so is it the right quarterback at the wrong time for the Panthers?
Yeah, I mean, let's trace this a little bit back, right? Sam Howell could have been a Carolina Panther. He slipped all the way to the 5th round. In that draft, the Panthers traded up to get Matt Corral in the 3rd round. Matt Corral, who's been cut, signed by New England and cut from them. If you look, you can play these games all the time, but had you drafted Howell and let him sit and had him as the starter, you would still have DJ Moore. You would have still had the 9th pick in the draft, in which you could have used on, guess who went 9th? Jalen Carter, who's probably the best player in the draft, off-field concerns, notwithstanding. You still have your number 1 pick moving forward. You still have an extra 3rd-round pick moving forward. So, I mean, you can do this in hindsight, right?
Sure.
But Sam Howell, many people thought, hey, the Panthers should draft Sam Howell. I think it's a combination, right? Brock Purdy was drafted in the 6th round or the 7th round.
Dead last. Mr. Irrelevant.
Had he not gone to San Francisco, had he gone to, say, 28 other teams, I don't think we'd ever heard of the name Brock Purdy.
That situation doesn't exist.
He went to the perfect situation, a coach that can get the most out of him, surrounded by talent. I mean, this is one of the reasons that quarterbacks taken atop the draft usually struggle. They're not surrounded by talent, or else you wouldn't be picking near the top of the draft. We're seeing it with Justin Fields. They went out and got DJ Moore to try to help him. They went out and got Claypool to try to help him. That situation, I don't think is the wrong situation. I just don't think Justin Fields is really cut out to be an NFL quarterback at the moment. And we've seen it with Zach Wilson, right? How many chances is Zach Wilson going to get? So it's a crapshoot at the top of the draft. And I don't know if you can always separate, would Pat Mahomes be Pat Mahomes if he didn't get drafted in Kansas City with Bieniemy, get to sit behind Alex Smith? and then get to take over and be, if he had gotten drafted by Carolina or if he'd gotten drafted by the Jets, would he be Patrick Mahomes?
This is, and you make a good point about being drafted atop the board. Like Caleb Williams' father coming out about a week ago, saying, hey, we might not go to the draft because I'm going to end up in a situation where I don't think he would want to even be in. But those situations where you would go, you talk about Arizona, you talk about Chicago, you talk about Houston, and places like that are going to go that way. They may not be in that position to even want to make that pick, so they could still end up, again, hypotheticals, but they could still end up in a good situation if you get an eager team like the Carolina Panthers who have a middling pick or so, and they're like, you know what, we're all in. We're going to go get this guy because we need a Caleb Williams, we need a Drake May, we need a Jordan Travis, the guys who are considered kind of the consensus top of this next year's draft.
I mean, it's too easy. Nobody's writing off Bryce Young. I think most people think he's going to be an effective NFL quarterback, but you see what other teams have done in that second year when they realize, okay, we've got a quarterback. Then they go get a wide receiver. The Bills got Stephon Diggs to help aid in the development of Josh Allen. The Eagles went out and got A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith to help in the development of Jalen Hurts. You can go down look what they did down in Miami. They got Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill to help in the development of Tua. This is how the NFL works. You get your quarterback, you think you know what you got, and then look at the Bears. They went out and got wide receivers to help in the development of Justin Fields. You get the quarterback, and then you go get the wide receiver, and that's how it happens. And so I'd imagine in this offseason, we're going to be talking about the Panthers going out and trying to find a number one receiver to aid in the development of Bryce Young. It's just the circle of life kind of in the NFL.
Paul Ihander and Brian Muprhy in for Tim Donnelly today here on The Drive on 99.9 The Fan. Listen to us on your Alexa. Just enable the skill. Just say, hey, Alexa, play 99.9 The Fan, or stream us, WRALSportsFan.com, or with the app, which is downloadable. We're kind of everywhere right now. So we talk about younger quarterbacks being put in different situations. Desmond Ridder in Atlanta is an interesting case for me. It's an NFC South play, but they went out and got Bijan Robinson for him. But last year he had to sit behind Marcus Mariota, who was supposed to be kind of the veteran guy, learn from and whatnot. At the end of that season, it went kind of squirrely with him leaving, Mariota leading the team, and Ridder coming in. Ridder hasn't exactly lit the place on fire, for sure. But the Falcons are 2-0. But they're not expecting that offense to carry the load in Atlanta. It's like, keep the games close and see if our skill guys can make things happen. And honestly, Kyle Pitts have a rebound season. Last year was abysmal for Pitts down there.
Well, they've gone the opposite way, right? Instead of getting the quarterback and then adding all the skill players, they've went and got all the skill players and are trying to make it work with a below-average quarterback. They've got Drake London, Kyle Pitts, Bijan Robinson. They also have a coach who is just committed to, we are going to pound the football. Like, yes. They don't play football like that anymore in the NFL, but we were just going to run it 30, 35, 40 times, throw the ball out to Bijan and hope he makes a play. And it's working so far. That the victory over Green Bay was they came from behind. They were down most of that game, and they made it work. They beat Green Bay.
Jordan Love, another one of those situations where it's funny because you look at Jordan Love, I'm like, he's not a young quarterback because he's been sitting for so long, but it's his first chance to kind of prove himself to a lot of people. But a guy who has, and we talked about the NFL running back situation before with Aaron Jones kind of hurt, and so all of a sudden A.J. Dillon's back in the mix again. And then if you could pick out, Christian Watson kind of came out of nowhere for them, but if you could pick out any of those guys and literally a lineup in front of you and said which one are the Packers receiving core and which ones are the receiving core at ODU, you would not be able to go between the two. There's unknowns.
Well, and that was the problem. Like, that was what Aaron Rodgers complained about, right? You kept spending your first-round picks on linemen and defenders and no skill position players. But Christian Watson is probably better than any wide receiver that the Panthers have right now.
And it might be the right time now for Jordan Love to take that step there for Aaron Rodgers to move aside finally and go to the Jets, and we all know what happened there.